Hi everyone, Matt from Boost here. I'm out here today just outside a village called Ufton in Warwickshire, where HS2 have kindly put in this lovely gravel track to get access to some of the work that they're doing, which is going to make a perfect place to do some testing of the Boost system and see how each power mode performs on some hills and see how much pedaling input I'm having to put in.
The hill is about 0.8 miles long, starting off at a steady 1 to 2% gradient on gravel before ramping up to 4%. At the end, there's a kicker at 8 to 10% gradient on tarmac, which would be a stern test for any rear hub-motored e-bike.
So first I'm going to set a benchmark time with no boost assistance at all. And then what we'll try and do is ride up in eco mode, ride up again in boost mode, and see how the times compare. I've got a power meter on my bike today, which means that I'll be able to try and pedal at a consistent effort across all the efforts that I'm making. Now, this really isn't science, this is going to be a real rough approximation, but it should give us an idea of how much work I'm putting in and how much assistance I'm getting from the boost system. What I'll then try and do as my final experiment is I'll try and match the speed that I went up the hill when I was pedaling with no boost assistance, but I'll be using the boost mode. Now, I expect that I won't be having to put in much effort at all to go up at that speed, and we'll use the power meter to measure how much effort I am having to put in. So this whole experiment should give you a nice idea of how much assistance you should expect to get from a boost kit in the different modes, and give you an idea of how it might impact your riding if you did fit the boost kit to your bike. Let's go!
I'm riding at around 180 watts on the flatter lower section of the climb, and had to ramp up to around 240 watts on the final steep kick. That's roughly the sort of effort that an active but not super fit rider could probably hold for about 1 hour on the start and then 3 to 5 minutes at the end. It's a decent workout. And now we descend back down to the bottom and we do it all again.
Now I've done all those reps up the hill, I'm going to head back home and grab a coffee, and then we'll download the files and do a little bit of analysis and see what the output was. See you there.
Now I'm back home, let's have a look at the power data and see what it shows us. I'm pleased to see that I kept my average power quite consistent across the runs, with only 3 watts variance in total. That's well within a reasonable tolerance for a slightly unscientific test like this. The results are really interesting. Over the whole 0.8 mile long climb, using eco mode saved me over a minute, and it boosted my speed by over 3 miles per hour. Switching to boost mode saved a further 20 seconds, and it boosted my speed by another 1.5 miles an hour. In both eco and boost mode, I was rolling on the flat sections at close to the 15.5 mile an hour speed limit for electric assist. These gradients were about 1 or 2%, so it was quite steady at the bottom of the climb. It was when I hit the steep 100-metre section at the end where I noticed the biggest difference between the modes, and the average speeds for this section in the last column show this nicely. This section was between 8 and a 10% gradient, and while I did get some assistance in the eco mode, I was climbing noticeably faster in boost. This is because eco mode is designed for flatter or more urban style riding. It picks up its power input as your speed increases, which means that the bike is really easy to control when you're riding at slow speeds, but conversely, when you do start to slow down, the power does decrease. Boost mode follows the same logic for a smooth, natural riding experience, but the difference is that in boost mode, the system can detect when you're climbing, so therefore it won't reduce the power output as your speed slow down on a steep hill. This is why we always recommend that you use boost mode for a steeper or a longer climb. It's easy to switch between the modes by using our free app or using the optional wireless display that we offer. For the final test, I switched the bike into boost mode and I tried to match the speed that I'd used when I was climbing without any assistance at all. This was harder than it sounded because boost mode was pushing me along faster on the flatter sections, and it meant that I was 23 seconds quicker overall with the assistance. However, my average power output was less than half for the whole climb, at 89 watts versus 190. On the less steep sections I was barely pedalling, but I did have to contribute some leg power on the steep sections. I had to pedal at around 160 to 180 watts here to climb at the same speed, which meant climbing a steep hill at a steady all-day cruising effort instead of a 240 watt output, which would be a hard effort which could only be held for about 3 to 5 minutes. It's worth noting that the combined weight of the rider and the bike in this case was about 94 kilograms, and that there are loads of variables which can affect your climbing speed. Things like the type of bike that the kit is fitted to, the weight of the rider, the weather, and even little things like the tyre pressure that you're using. Your individual results might vary, but hopefully this has given you a good idea of how a boost kit might affect your riding if you did fit it to your bike. If you're interested to find out more, head to boostbike.uk where there's loads more information about the kits. Thanks for watching.